That's actually wow. I'm like, out of all the characters, like he's like the most Caucasian nigga. Like what the fuck?
Yeah, I know, it's so ridiculous, dude. What's going on, guys? It's the Anti-Oki Podcast, and I'm gonna keep that clip in there because we were just like talking. I was like, you know what, may as well just like start recording because we're already talking about stuff.
Yeah.
But what the hell you been, man?
I've been hooked on Fantasy Star, bro. I'm like weaving out. I don't know.
Yeah.
You playing Guilty Gear, right?
I'm playing Guilty Gear. Yeah, I was just playing over on Game Breaker God's stream. I got him 3 times. But he got the first to 5, unfortunately. But I'm getting better at that game. It's fun, man.
It looks good. It's just $50. I don't know if I want to spend.
I hear you. No, I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. Well, fucking, you already started talking about it, man. We have some other stuff to talk about this week, I think, because like, you know, everything's still ridiculous on the internet, man. But all the time. But so the first thing you were talking about, you already brought it up, man. Black Albert Wesker.
Black Caucasian male. What?
A black Caucasian. So if you guys don't know what the hell we're talking about, basically there is a Resident Evil live action series that's coming out. I don't know when. I think it's like September or something like that. Whatever it is. Doesn't matter because I'm not going to watch it. But they're doing a live action series. And Lance Reddick is casted as Albert Wesker. So I don't know
who's the director or the producer behind this garbage.
We should find out. We could find out right now. IMDb.
Like, is this gonna just be a trend? It's like we used to talk about how bad video game movies were and how bad the shows were, and now it's just like, yeah, they're just gonna continue being bad but even more cringe. Just replace all the white guys with black guys, bro.
It doesn't even make any sense because isn't like Wesker supposed to be this character that like alludes to like white superiority in the first place, right? Because he's like, he fancies himself a god and he's like he sees himself as a superior being. Wasn't that the point of this character? This tells me that these people don't know what the hell they're even doing. Like they've never even looked into the source material. Because it's not even just about race swapping, which is stupid in the first place. But like in this specific case, especially, I'm fucking done, bro.
It's like I can only imagine like what's the lore gonna be. It's gonna be like, you know, like watch it be like they try to make Wesker to some hero now, like he's like overcoming white supremacy or some shit. Like they just flip the whole thing. Like I don't know, bro.
Yo, that would be so weird. I'm trying to okay, Infinite Darkness. No, that's not it. Infinite Darkness is the anime that's coming out. I'm trying to see like I can't find the Netflix.
I know you said in your video that this is intentional to get the anime going or something.
Well, I think that it's intentional to get people who are interested in Resident Evil to watch this, right? Like they're putting the anime out first that like looks like it's actually based in like some lore in the games, and not saying that like it necessarily has to be. I mean, like those Resident Evil movies with Mila Jovovich were really successful. I didn't really like them, the ones that I don't like any of them, but they made a lot of them and they were successful. But it's like at least like Paul W.S. Anderson had the wherewithal to cast his wife as a character who is like not connected, like an original character.
Yeah.
And that's what I was saying is it's like all they needed to do was create an original character that is like set in that world. If you want to do that, that's totally fine. Like I would be jazzed to see something like that. That'd be cool. But it makes no sense to do, like it's so lazy. And to me,
yeah, that's a good word to use, lazy.
It is, because it's if what you want is characters that represent a certain demographic, which is stupid, but if that's what you actually want to do, race swapping those characters doesn't actually achieve that. All it does is it's a blackwash. If that was done reverse, Like if okay, let's have white Black Panther. They
Yeah.
did Asian Batman, I think. They did Asian Batman.
Trying to do Black Superman now. They're just, you know, this
That's
is
right.
everywhere. This is really like I don't know if you watch Young Ripper.
Oh, of
He's
course. Yeah.
of course you do.
Eric
It's
July, yeah.
I don't know why.
Shout outs to Eric July, man.
Yeah. Like he had a few videos on how just manga is just demolishing American comics, and it really is. Like I wonder if even before the woke shit, the like manga were just taking over American comics anyway, just because they've been so successful for the last like what 20 years at least.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Berserk really kicked off to get the ball rolling and from like manga in the US. Like because how old is
RIP,
Berserk in manga?
the creator of that just died recently. RIP.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah. It's
but
I don't know how long manga has been dominating American comics, but I
well,
imagine
I
it's
don't know
probably
either. I don't know either specifically, but I know like anime and like that whole wave got really big around like with Toonami and Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon, so like the mid 90s or whatever. And at that time, we did have some good cartoons that were based on Western properties. The Batman cartoon was in full swing in the 90s.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I'm saying? The X-Men and Spider-Man cartoons, which in my opinion are not on the same level as Batman, but they're still good. You know what I'm saying? And they didn't like beat you over the head with things like I've recently been watching the Batman animated series again, and what I noticed is that they deal with concepts and ideas that adults can identify with, right? Like, so for example, in one episode, like Bruce Lee like deals with like his fear and anxiety over like feeling like he caused his parents' death, right? And like
Yeah.
Scarecrow exploits that, etc. And it's very deep, and it's like adult kind of concepts that are being introduced, but not like being too heavy over the head with them, like, right? And I think that like there's like some sort of there's a push to like be so overt with your messaging, or like what, you know what I mean, that like it kind of makes it the art about the message versus like the medium,
Right.
right?
Yeah,
If that makes sense.
there's a movie that came out, I want to say a few months ago. I think it's like it's a school shooter film about this girl. I forgot the name of it. I might have to pull it up, but basically, it has a conservative message about
Oh, are you talking about Run Fight Hide
run hide fight.
or
That's what
Run
it
Hide
is.
Fight?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
That's the
that
Ben
movie was
Shapiro movie.
it's a good example
Well, I guess he didn't make it, but
yeah, it's a good example of a film that tries to be a good film first with conservative messaging, like, or even really conservative themes.
I don't even think that that's a conservative message. I think that like what they did was they very cleverly used Hollywood tropes, but not like in the sense of it's so in your face and that's what this is about. Like the fact that she had like a black best friend in the trailer. I didn't watch the
Yeah.
trailer, but like things like that, and that it's a female lead in the first place, right? But it's based around a situation that's like scary, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, and so it becomes an action movie. I think that
Have you
was
seen the
clever.
film?
No, I haven't seen it. I only saw the trailer. I'm
Well,
talking
yeah.
about the trailer.
Just to give like just some idea of like
Did you
what's
watch it?
yeah, I watched it. Yeah,
Nice.
just to give like some idea of what the themes are. So like one particular theme that it's not really in the trailer, but it's in the film is really the relationship with like her and her father. Like they really
Yeah.
like as the movie goes on, it kind of explores that theme because the
Cool.
protagonist, even though obviously it's a girl, she's not like a Mary Sue. Like she's got problems and she's a very flawed character. And you can do that without driving a message down somebody's throat. Like you can ignore the messaging and just watch the movie and have a good time.
Yeah, right.
I think like media that tries to have messaging like that, it needs to be a good product first. Same thing with games. And I think like what they're doing here with this Albert Wesker being black is like they're trying to make the messaging, like prioritizing that over the actual content.
Yeah.
So that's usually why woke shit usually fails. It's not very good. Even if you just take out the messaging, it usually just sucks anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you brought up Young Ripa. I mean, he always is talking about how he feels like, and I agree with this, that they know that their writing is not good, that they are creatively bankrupt, as he likes to say, right? And that way, the reason why they push this to the forefront is so that they can get people to give them money to see their terrible work, because they hide behind a license that people recognize, And so that's why I related it to the Resident Evil anime that's coming out, because I feel like they're putting that in front of us for us to get interested in what Netflix does with Resident Evil, and then flipping the script on us so that we like sit through some nonsense.
Yeah.
But that's going to be 8 episodes. I don't even think like I don't even think I'm going to watch one, but
Yeah.
I think that I really do think that I believe in that notion where it's like a lot of these people just aren't very good, and that's okay, right? But like if you if you create something that's not very good and nobody pays attention to it, then you should use that as a way to like learn how to be better at it, right? That's what I think.
Yep. Facts.
And so you just keep going. Okay, like let me just like figure something out and change something. And eventually you'll start figuring it out. But these people have all of these budgets, and I don't know, for some reason they just like are willing to throw away money. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very strange,
I don't
right?
know.
Because this type of media doesn't usually do well. It doesn't sell well. People don't usually watch it. You saw like what happened when Catwoman had like died, and like was it Catwoman or Batgirl? It was Batgirl, I think it was.
Batwoman.
Or Batwoman, yeah. Died in like the first season.
Isn't that show still on though? It's still on. Because they replaced her with they replaced Ruby Rose with a black girl. So now,
and then they cancel it after, like shortly after.
Is it canceled?
Yeah, pretty sure. Yeah. I mean, unless they updated it or something, but that's the whole thing, right? It's like usually this woke kind of content doesn't do well, and so where does I don't know if like if other kinds of content are funding these budgets for these shitty. I don't really know how they keep this going. Like you said, it's like if it's not doing well, how do they keep getting the money to spend it or to create this crap? Maybe I watched one video talking about this, that because of the culture that's going on right now, with like the woke culture, it's like in their mind, it's worth taking like a capital loss for the time being to kind of go with the culture, and like later down the line, it's a weird like thing to understand. But that's assuming that at some point it'll pick up and the woke stuff does sell, and so I don't even know if that's gonna work.
They're trying to condition like the world, is what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much.
Into accepting these ideas. I mean,
right.
I don't know if you've noticed. Have you noticed that every single commercial on YouTube, at least this happens to me, has black people in it now?
Yeah.
Like in the lead, like, and it's like, it's actually significant because like I've definitely noticed a difference in the way that like the demographics that are represented on TV and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who it was. Forgive me, but I can't remember who it was. He's who said that it's like the easiest thing in the world to be black in Hollywood right now. because you just keep getting gigs. And like I don't know, like again, like I don't know how they're continually funding these things if they're netting them losses. And I don't know enough about like specifics on shows, but like if Batwoman is getting canceled because of this stuff, I mean, I think the first season didn't do well either, because like it was very, I don't know, it's probably centered around the fact that she was like a lesbian or something like that.
It's funny, like I watched some clips.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, like I watched some clips from the first season, and even if you like, it's again, if you ignored the woke stuff, like the acting was just really bad. The action sequences was just awful. Like it was just a lazy, like there wasn't a lot of talent on board at all. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, in the case of the Resident Evil stuff, though, it's like I don't really understand who that is going to appeal to if the core audience for Resident Evil is already accustomed to this. I think you could probably say, like, people would say, oh, well, Nick Fury used to be white or something like that. And I mean, I'm going to say that was stupid too, right? It worked for them at the time, but I think the reason was because they changed him in the comics first.
Wasn't like a woke agenda at the time, right? Like,
I mean, it could have been. It could have been prototype woke.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that, like, regardless, it's probably stupid. Like, they could have just had regular Nick Fury, but it was the ultimate Nick Fury. It was like they explained it with like the multiverse thing, right? And then that became like the Nick Fury that they used in the movies, and that's the one that people are like accustomed to, Samuel L. Jackson, right? And you know, I would argue that that's stupid too. I don't know what the point of doing stuff like that is. I think that worked for them though.
Well, it kind of goes back to what I was saying, where like if you were to ignore that, you don't care about going from white to black.
Yeah,
Samuel L. Jackson is a very talented actor, so I guess
for
we didn't really
sure.
care. And I think that's really
but
what's yeah.
but like I said, they did that in comics first.
Hmm,
So it's
okay.
like I don't actually, you know, I don't remember feeling a type of way about it. The reason is because I had never really read Nick Fury comic books beforehand where he was white. I just knew about like the movie with David Hasselhoff. And by the time I started reading like Ultimate Spider-Man and like that stuff where Nick Fury is black, I hadn't had an introduction to the white Nick Fury. So it's the same thing with Green Lantern. Like I grew up with Green Lantern being John Stewart. And so like when I saw Green Lantern as Hal Jordan for the first time, I was like, what? Like I was like a
Yeah.
teenager or something like that. And I was like, wait, what? Green Lantern's white? Um, so they've been doing this for quite a while, but I mean, in the case of Green Lantern, I would disqualify it because the Green Lantern, like the ring, just picks someone, and like I get that like obviously makes it could be a black person, could be whatever. So like within the story, that makes sense that like it's being passed from this person to person. But if you're just like that's completely different than taking one character and changing him into a different race. Like if you personify one character as one race and then you race swap it, it is different than if you create another role, a role for the character, and then have that role be filled by different characters.
I
There's
see what you're saying.
but there's arguments that either one is stupid, but I think that those are a different case. In this case with Resident Evil, it's almost tone deaf, and it almost is like letting us know straight up that the people who are writing this have no interest in Resident Evil at all.
Oh.
You know?
It's funny like this, even like that article, just seeing like the front head, it's just like there like all like confident. I'm just like, bro, this is like where's it? I don't know if they're self-aware or if it's like some 4D chess thing. It's like maybe like they want it to be cringe to piss people off and get people to watch out of outrage. Like I don't really know what it is. Like I don't even know if these people are that smart. I just know that if you like we really have to not fund this stuff at the end of the day, because
Yeah.
but it's also difficult because like I get the argument about the not funding the media you don't want really to be perpetuated, but
Yeah.
these it's like we said, like this woke stuff doesn't get funded in the first place very well. Like it doesn't do well anyway. They just
Yeah.
keep doing it anyway. So I wonder if it would even work.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like again, like I feel like I don't know if there's like a group of people that are just continually funding this and or if it's just like we're actually there's actually enough people that are interested in this that it keeps they figure that it's like only a matter of time before they start netting some gains or something. I don't know. But I don't think that the properties are the priority. I think that the ideology, some sort of obsession with black people doing the things that they saw white people do, I guess,
Yeah.
which is really weird because it puts it in, and I'm just like thinking through this like right now as I'm talking to you, but it puts us in this position where we're still looking to white people to set the tone for the conversations that we're allowed to have.
Yeah.
And it's very fucking weird. Like if you had a story that was about a black character, even if it was an original character, and you put it in the Resident Evil universe and told this story, I would watch it. I can tell you that right now. As long as it was good, you know? But they have to have such little faith in their storytelling ability to have to piggyback off of like what a white character already did. And it's kind of like sad, you know, because what I would like to see stuff with black people in it that's good. Like, and there is plenty of that stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like, but I don't want that to be the driving force for why they're doing it. I don't want the race of the character to be that important, because I think that sets a bad precedent where now we're going to be like, well, no, he can't get that role because, you know what I mean, XYZ. And once you start making rules like that in any community and any, like, it's just gonna become a net negative. You know what I mean? When it's about anything other than, like, in the case of adaptations, doing right by the source material. You know what I'm saying?
It's also like it makes people like it like because a lot of this woke content is usually in the case of like just make the white person black. What it starts to do is it creates this like reaction whenever like a movie or like a company that's producing a movie or directing, when they started to put a black person where somebody else used to be, it's like now it's like it's probably going to be trashed now. Like we have that reaction now because it happens so often. Like, and I don't really blame people for thinking that way. It happened with Mortal Kombat. Once I saw that because I saw that movie in my buddy's crib, and I already knew what I was gonna be like.
That movie's so bad.
Yeah. And they made I think it was I'm trying to remember her name that they made black just for no. It was really weird.
Melina.
They made Melina black, and once I saw that. And then when you go back to, the whole director claiming like, well, I don't know if I want to have a white guy, like the whole Johnny Cage crap. It's just like, I pretty much predict what the movie's going to look like. And it's exactly what I thought it would be.
Yeah. Well, so with that movie, it was about like the Johnny Cage thing. I think that's another case where I'm like, do these people even like know what they're talking about in terms of this property? Because this guy says that, I can't remember the director's name. It doesn't matter. He says that the reason why they took out Johnny Cage is because they didn't want a white guy to be a hero. And it's like, have you ever like played Mortal Kombat? Like Liu Kang is the hero. The Asian guy is the hero.
It's true.
And also like, instead of letting Liu Kang be the hero, they relegated him to a side role, which is really weird. I really didn't like the way that Liu Kang played Liu Kang in that. I thought he was really weird, but weirdly characterized. But they made a character who was a brand new character, which is fine, right? You could do that, like I was just saying. But the actor they got to play him is half white and half Asian, so they whitewashed the lead character. Like,
it's like retarded, bro.
Like, come on, man. Like that when I saw that, I was like, oh man. And then that movie, the pacing was just bad. But like, I think the best part of that movie was Kano, though. The guy who would play Kano, I would watch a Kano movie with him in it.
Yeah, just him, yeah. Yeah, but, that and it was the most irritating thing to me that I don't know if other people found this just irritating. They simultaneously intentionally made Sonya Blade not that relevant because she wasn't a tournament fighter, while also making her very relevant to the movies.
Yeah,
I did not understand the decision at all.
What was with the? Okay, let's talk about Sonya for a second. First of all, Sonya was one of the original characters of Mortal Kombat, right?
What annoyed me.
So what they did with her was they made her not a chosen one for the tournament, and instead they made her earn it by killing, who was it, Kano?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So I think what was going through their head was this. They wanted to allude to the first movie where Sonya does kill Kano.
That's right, yeah.
And they wanted to make, they probably saw that and they were like, we want to have her to have a motivation for doing that, or like have something like a reward for doing that, or however they framed it. And so they made her like get the mark, which, to be honest, was a cool idea. But the way that they had Sonya get it, it almost seemed like they were trying to force that scene to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the only reason why they did that.
Yeah.
Because Sonya should have been like, Jax had it, but like, I mean, I guess it was like, is this Mortal Kombat 1 and 2? Like, no, just kidding. But like, regardless of that part, I want to see the movie that was set up in the beginning That was a Scorpion versus Sub-Zero. That's what I want to see. I want to see that movie.
It's like 2 different films from the first like 10 minutes and the rest of the movie. It's so strange.
So it's just basically at the end of the day, Hollywood is fucking trash.
Yeah. And I don't know how you change it.
Nah.
Because even if they lose money, they're going to keep making this shit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, whatever. The next thing, we got one more thing. I got another thing that I wanted to get your take on, man, which was the Scott Cawthon debacle. Now, I don't know if you got a chance to check out anything about this, but I'll give you the rundown, right?
Okay.
So Scott Cawthon is a creator of a video game franchise called Five Nights with Freddy's. Have you heard of it?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so the guy's a Christian. He was making like Christian games before he was making Five Nights at Freddy's. But anyway, he was outed and doxxed because he donated to Republican candidates in the past, and he like donated to Tulsi Gabbard also, which nobody seems to care about, but whatever.
Yeah, of course not.
But I guess he was like at the brink of cancellation. I don't know if he's actually going to get canceled or whatever, but he ended up writing a Reddit post on his community's board, sort of apologizing, sort of not apologizing. I mean, it wasn't, he basically said that he's not going to apologize for doing what he did, but there are parts in what he said that sort of concede the fact that he might have done something wrong or something, in my opinion. So I'll read you like a little excerpt of what he's saying. And it's for the second paragraph. He says, to say that the last few days have been surreal would be an understatement. I've debated greatly how to best address this, including not addressing it at all. But with so many people from the LGBT community and the fan base that I love, that's not an option. So that right there tells me that he thinks that he owes an explanation to people in the LGBT community for donating to Republicans and being a Christian, which is already operating from within their moral framework.
Right. That's my problem.
And that is bad.
Right.
Because
you conceded.
He's
probably not even aware of it.
No. And he goes on, I think, let me see if I have the second part. He goes on later to say, I'm a Republican, I'm a Christian, I'm pro-life, I believe in God, I also believe in equality and in science and in common sense. Now I need to stop him right there.
Yeah.
You can't believe in equality and in common sense. That's not possible. That's not a thing. So like I'm saying, is this guy is operating from within the moral framework that has been presented to him by these people, and he's already lost at that point, because now even if he's not canceled, he's going to have to be subservient in some way, and he's going to have to constantly explain himself,
right?
Which is that's not a win. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, even like more so. He says common sense, and then he apologizes to the LGBT. It's just like, bro, that ideology and common sense don't go hand in hand.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't concede to that. It's like, it's so annoying, man. Especially when it's specifically Christians who do this shit, because they're not only because they haven't done the homework to really be aware of where this is coming from, where these ideas come from, but also like when they concede to these people, you essentially compromise your integrity. And again, he doesn't really understand what he's doing it, but it's like we have to be aware of this. Like rhetoric is really important. Like I was just hanging with my family 2 days ago, and I had a whole discussion with my whole family. I was like, we have to stop using their terms. Like the term biological male is a ridiculous term. It's male. Can we stop like conceding ground, for fuck's sake? It's really irritating. Like we have to stop using their terms. They made this shit up.
So wait,
this is crazy.
So you think that this is interesting. So you think that using biological male is I mean, I agree with you, but I want you to I want you to expand a little bit more on this. You think using biological male is needless? Like the qualifier is needless.
It's only there because people have accepted the ideology the LGBT has pushed. That's the only reason. Because when people say that, they're saying it as if there's other types of males, in this case trans men or and I don't, you know,
You
like we
don't
have to
believe in
reject that. We have to reject that. If we don't, they will not stop. Listen, this has been going on for over 10 years, and we're
Over
at a
10
point like it started with the whole gay marriage thing 10 years
Yeah,
ago,
yeah.
and we were lied to. We were told that they just want to do what they want in the privacy in their own home. That's nonsense. It was a lie. It was bullshit. And now
wait. So some people would argue, I want to play devil's advocate now.
yeah.
So some people would argue that you know, transgender people have existed since like the beginning of time in different cultures and things like that. What would you say to that?
I would say people have been doing that for significant time, right? Like cutting their, you know, mutilation and whatnot. The people have been doing that. What we've never done is accepted it and normalized it to where it's now redefined gender. That's the difference now from then. We've always kind of like seen it as this thing that like you know, people do that, but it's not a real thing. Like people are just fucking crazy. It's because it's just validating. we validated mental illness way too much at this point, and we have to reject it.
So okay, so some people would say to you, they would say like, okay, so look at like the third gender in India or whatever, like, or like there's like, you know, there's like the lady boys that are third gendered or something like that, and we have that, they have that in those cultures, like, you know, like, so that disproves your point. Like, what would you say?
I don't even know anything about this. What the fuck is that?
So I think I can look it up.
Okay,
because this is something that I hear a lot. It's not intersex. It's they're called hedras.
I have no.
They are officially recognized as a third gender in the Indian subcontinent in Pakistan.
When did they do that? When did they validate that?
Being considered neither completely male or female. They have a recorded history in Indian subcontinent since antiquity, as suggested by Kama Sutra. Yeah, so many live in a well-defined and organized. Okay, now this could all just be bullshit, but you know, I wouldn't doubt that exists in other cultures. My response to that is that that's not Western culture, though.
Yeah,
you live within Western culture. We don't do stuff like that typically.
and I would imagine that's like that third gender is probably put into place or been recognized in the last what, like 2 decades.
No, I would say it's probably pretty old. Let's see.
Interesting.
I mean, like, you know, because the thing about it is, it's not relevant.
The exception is the rule.
Yeah, I mean, it's not relevant to the discussion about like Western culture and what we do in Western culture, because at the end of the day, Western culture is rooted in Judeo-Christian ideas, regardless of whether or not you personally want to. I was just thinking about this. It's like whether or not you personally want to adhere to them is different, but you can't force the state to make people adhere to those things, right? So, like, for example, a lot of people are talking about how there's basically laws in place that say that like doctors don't have to, you know, give patients access to medical care, etc.
Right.
And they're calling it discrimination when, for example, a guy who has HIV doesn't get like his HIV medication, for example. I was just looking into this kind of stuff. So now let me think about this really quick. If you make it, and I'm not saying that that's correct, but what, because I don't really know the full details of like what actually happened between the patients or why this was going on. Regardless of, even if it was like the guy saying like, I don't believe in giving somebody something that's like goes against God or whatever, somebody goes against. Even if that's the case, there's 2 options here. One, you can go to another doctor, but also if it was flipped, if it was something else, if it was like drug addiction, right? So somebody gets addicted to oxytocin or something like that, and that person went to a doctor and demanded that they give them drugs, and the doctor was legally not allowed to deny, then how many people would continually you know, go back to the doctor and get like whatever drug that they became addicted to because they accidentally took too many, or because they were prescribed something stupid by doctors in the first place, right? I think at the end of the day, we can't force people to agree with or validate certain behaviors because of their position within our lives. and we can't get the state to enforce that, because that could ultimately hurt more people than it actually helps. Especially if the state decide, even if take the individual doctor out of the equation, the state could decide to do something fucked up. Like, look what's going on with vaccines and shit right now, right? Everybody's pressuring everybody to go get these vaccines and shit like that. And they're saying, oh, well, you're not required. But it's like the state is enforcing all of these, has been like pushing these ideas into people's head to get them to pressure each other into doing these things. I know I'm going off, but I'm gonna say is,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, give the fucking state less power and stop looking for this to the state to solve your problems. Instead, start figuring out how you can solve your own problems. And it's not the responsibility of like somebody else to validate you. Then they'll say, oh, well, what if they decide that they, don't want to, don't want to serve a black person or something like that? I've been like, okay, well, being black is not a medical condition. So
They love to do that. These analogies, right? It's like these terrible analogies. It's like, and that's kind of like the problem too. It's like we usually operate by different language. Like they think everything is the same. It's kind of crazy. Like they really think like, like gender and race, medical conditions, it's all the same shit. You just compare them.
Yeah, right.
It's like we don't do that, right? It's like we don't think that way. So it's like it's a like we've always said on this podcast, guys. This is an ideological back and forth. It's our ideas versus them. Like my whole thing is like we got to destroy these ideas by convincing.
How do you do that?
By convincing
them?
Yeah.
I don't think that that's possible. I'm starting to understand that, because here's the thing: they're not
don't want to have the conversation,
convinced, and they're not trying to convince us either. They're trying to force us.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah. Actually thinking about this too lately. Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's really hard to remain someone who is like for liberty in some senses, and because I think inevitably there's this point where things need to turn in order for ideologies to win. I don't think that it's because in some senses, like, an ideology possesses someone, right? And it's like after a while, it's like, especially if they're trying to force theirs on you, like how do you combat that logically and like with words? Like, you think the Civil War just fucking came out of nowhere? Like, nah, that shit was brewing for a while, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Things were happening. Then how long do you think until a congressman canes another congressman?
What do you mean cane?
Like whaps them with, like, beats them up.
Oh yeah, government start literally fighting each other. Like
yeah.
I mean, it's not sustainable for what it is right now. I mean, at some point it's gonna collapse. But I get what you mean. Like I recently like watched it. I don't know if you know John Doyle on YouTube.
Yeah, I know him.
He had a video recently pretty much talking about this, where pretty much reiterating what you just said, where it's like we've kind of passed the point where it's like we could just have civil dialogue and change people's ideas. It's like we can't, like, we tried that, or not really try, but we just been like, owning the libs and all that bullshit. Like we've been doing that for over 20 years. We just keep losing. So it's like that's not gonna work anymore. It's
yeah.
Like, and I see what you mean. It's just and he's also talking about this whole idea that like for example, like if we even propose the idea, like let's ban like critical race theory or something like that, right? You immediately have people like in the center and the right. It's like, but if we do that, then we're compromising our liberties, and like we can't. And it's just well, that comes from an idea that we've allowed to exist for over 20 years. And that's how we got here, by like being attached to idealism and not reality. It's like, it's kind of like, or like, it's kind of the common trope. It's like, people got to think for themselves and whatnot, but it's like in reality, they don't. It's like people just follow a collective usually. Like, so it's, his whole point was like, we have to really think more in reality and stop being attached to this idea of liberty we've had for so long. Cause that's kind of resulted in inaction. We kind of just let the other side just win for so long. So it's like, we have to change that, I guess.
What do you think about the idea of people being allowed to teach about critical race theory, in the sense that like there are people that have this ideology that says this, and then about the opposing ideology, right? Or like opposing ideas against that. So just introducing the concept that critical race theory exists, but not forcing it on people, right? So
Yeah.
it's like something that you can choose to study if you want.
Well, I think there's two things, right? I think the first thing is, um, in order for that to become a reality, you'd have to have whoever's like in charge of bringing in professors to teach that would have to be operating under the idea of like, we want professors to teach things and let people think for themselves. Like that has to be their fundamental idea. So we have to get someone like in charge to operate thinking that way. And then after that, then is really the question is like, um, is that something we even want to put forward? Because the whole thing is like, these ideas, right? Like even ideas we don't like. If we come under this neutral premise, that's like, well, people want to learn about them, they can. It's like, I'm really at a point where I'm just like, do we even allow it at this point? And it's like, well, if we don't allow it, then we go against. It's kind of go back to this idea. It's like if we don't allow it, then we're being the same tyrants, like shutting down liberty. It's like, but again, that idea that's how we got here. So it's like we might have to change how we really think about really freedom of speech and allowing what goes on. Like we might have to rethink it. It's a really scary thing to think about because we basically like it's under this under this impression that we abandon our really like, I guess, libertarian ideas of like liberty and going under like, well, this is reality, we got to do something about it. It's like, fuck all that. I don't know. Like I don't really know the answer.
Well, I don't think that the people who founded this country really intended for free speech to be absolute, because there's always been
Yeah, I
like
think so too.
obscenity laws and things like that. And I think people nowadays interpret that to be an absolute thing.
Yeah.
I think a lot of obscenity laws got, gotten rid of, but there's still ones against like distributing obscene material to minors, which is being challenged a lot, right? In some senses, in terms of like what obscene material actually is, you know what I mean? And so I think that people need to understand that too, is like there is a limit to what you can what you can do in a society that allows you to be able to do it. So what I'm saying is, it's like there was a point in time where freedom meant freedom that you ought to do the right thing, right? And like freedom to do the right thing, right? Um, because like if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have things like prisons, for example, right? That would just wouldn't exist, because there will always have been things that you can't do or say or whatever. Um, depending on who. I think that this idea that we're heading towards, that like everybody needs to be accepted at all times, or everything needs to be accepted, like there's obvious danger to that. And I'm it's really shocking to me how much people have accepted that, and they're continually, I mean, you gave the benchmark of like gay marriage and stuff, right? So you're like, so 5 years ago it was like, or 6 years ago, whenever it was.
10, something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
More like
So
10.
it was like gay marriage, and then now we have like drag queen story hour, and it's like you have to accept that too. And it's like it really confuses me. Well, I guess it doesn't confuse me. I guess I just don't understand like human psychology enough to understand like how so many people would fall into that. And I'm just kind of watching it unfold in real time and figuring out like, okay, what was going on. I think that like it's definitely a softening, a slow kind of removal of like demoralization, I guess people call it.
There's something else too, just really quick. So
Yeah.
like in that, because this is I'll probably show it to you after. This video is really interesting what John Doe was talking about. He's kind of like, he's like, you notice how no one really talks about how the communists in the early 1900s and like it's basically like how people are treating the right wing now. And it's like the whole thing is, regardless of whether something sounds ridiculous or not, like people don't want to think for themselves. So like if the narrative is like, like if the narrative is like if the LGBT should have a whole Pride Month, like people go along with it.
Yeah.
People just want to follow narratives. They don't really think for themselves. I think we like to have this idea that most people do, but most people really don't. And so whatever the narrative, it's basically like if you want to take back ideological power and if you want your ideas to really thrive, you have to take over the narrative. That's like the unfortunate reality because people don't think for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, like there was, I think it was like H3H3 was saying like on his podcast, he was like, "Well, bro, like, why would you even think about it, bro? Like,
I
there's
saw that.
people like who are way smarter than you, who like, you know what I mean, already figured this out. Like, why even think about it, bro? And it's like,
Kind of get what he means though, which is crazy because it's true in a
that's what
sense.
most people do.
Most people do.
But like, I I think that that's a bad thing to push, because it's like, you don't want to push for people to like just blindly trust authority.
Yeah,
Like that's
hard.
I mean, that's how we got Nazis.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? It's like, we have all of this history that exists that warns us of these things, and we keep falling into it. Why? I mean, I guess it's I mean, the education's obviously lacking, right? But I don't think that it's even on the government to do that kind of stuff. I think it's on parents to do that kind of stuff. And if you're like gonna do that, then like have a child, then you should be responsible for like making sure that person knows how to like think for themselves and not just kind of follow like the beehive, because that could just lead you to the slaughterhouse, man. That's like lemmings jumping off a fucking bridge. You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously.
yeah. Doyle video was interesting too because he talked about like gaining power and actually changing things. Like, oh, if you're a corporation, and I mean, I guess you have to define corporation in a sense.
Yeah.
Basically, like if you're a corporation, you push political messaging, you're gonna get taxed like crazy, like shit like that. Like just to really stop that. Like it sounds really radically right, but it's like, you know, like
That's
not.
actually not a bad idea.
I like it personally.
That's
Now,
actually
obviously,
not a bad idea. Yeah.
it would be a good idea if you have the right people in power, because that's what's really key, right? You have to have people in power that you trust. Well, I mean,
Yeah,
trust,
no, we're
so
never
that's the
gonna
hard
be.
part.
I don't ever want to trust the government, but like, I don't, and I hate taxes, but I think
Too.
I like that idea because it basically punishes them for
He
trying
was
to
like $1 million.
indoctrinate people.
Go
Well,
all the way.
because it also makes sense too, because if you're pushing political messaging, then why won't the government be like, okay, cool, you're benefiting us, thanks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, that's what you get for like trying to do any of that stuff instead of but I think so. I think that's kind of funny, but I'm not. I'm actually with that. I
I'm
would
with that
support
too at
that.
this point, man. I'm with it too. I'm starting to like
a
again.
woke tax.
Yeah, like my old idea of liberty, I'm really starting to like get away from, because that's how we got here.
You're starting to go back
Yeah,
to
man.
being an authoritarian. Yeah, that's what
That's
I'm
it. I'm
saying.
an
It's
authoritarian right asshole. I think that's what I'm getting to. I'm just like,
yeah, like,
fuck, but
fuck you.
yeah. It's because, you know, because really the whole thing is like we're more based in reality, and I think the left is more based in idealism. They're very attached to ideas. We're more attached to reality. So if we have an idea but in reality it doesn't work, we know we have to change that idea.
Right,
We're based in reality, not the idea. Whereas the left
right.
is totally different.
Yeah, they're letting the idea lead
Correct.
them
Yeah.
instead of leading themselves to the ideas. You know. Yeah, I mean, I agree.
They reject reality. They don't want it. Like they just reject it.
Man, that's fucking rough, man. What are we gonna do
Yeah,
about
it's
that?
tough, but you know, I think now it's like I'm starting to understand what we're up against now. Like I'm starting to see it for what it is now, and now it's like, yeah, we have to take some drastic calls, because I mean, like we've been kind of like we've been attached to an idea for too long. And I didn't even really realize it. I didn't realize I was doing this until recently. I'm just like, fuck, man. Maybe we do have to tax $1 million for corporations who put out political bullshit. Like maybe we do have to do that. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, I think we've sort of gotten to that point, but also I think that it's important for people to create things that have their messaging in them without like kind of going back to the beginning of the conversation, so we could go all the way full circle. We're talking about how back in the day they would put certain characters or whatever or narratives in their in art that kind of introduced people to ideas but didn't beat them over the head with them. And I think that like if we can get enough people to start doing those things for their ideals, like, okay, so Tim Pool's was talking about how he's doing like the vlogs or something like that, and he'll have like skateboarders and, you know, skateboard videos and things like that. In the background of some of the shots, there'll be like a Gadsden flag or something like that, right?
Okay, interesting.
And it's like, so his plan, he's like, well, so, you know, a little kid's gonna see that, and then when his teacher is like talking about the Gadsden flag and says that it's a symbol of racism or whatever, he's gonna be like, wait, what? No. Those guys in the skate videos had that. They're not racist. What are you talking about? and then he's going to start challenging the narratives. That's the only way that you can do that, is by subtly putting things in there that represent the things that you believe, so that you can get people to start thinking about the ideas behind it, as opposed to, and honestly, you have to it sucks to say, but you have to start with like kids.
Yeah. Well, no,
that's what they're doing.
Well, no. I see what you're saying, right? Because
you're
saying like, well, it sucks because
introduce it to them,
right? Like, because I get what you're saying. Like, it sucks because we basically have to indoctrinate kids. And,
yeah.
But here's the thing about indoctrination. Like, I used to think indoctrination was inherently a bad thing, but we do it all the time when we're parents. Parents do it all the time.
Exactly.
It's just depending on what the messaging is. The whole idea is like, essentially brainwashing, creating a narrative, the things that we've really not liked this whole time is actually not the enemy, because that's a tool. It's more like a means to an end. It's like the end is to get our ideas that we like, that we believe are correct, mainly out to the mainstream, so that people accept them, because they don't think for themselves anyway. Right. That's kind of the idea, right?
Yeah. So like, yeah, exactly. It starts by introducing, like, reintroducing these ideas through generations, because that's what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. The problem is, I think that it's a little bit different when you are presenting, like, if you do something like have a Gadsden flag in the back of a video, that's completely different than like having a kid sit on like a drag queen's lap.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think it's very different.
You know what I'm saying?
Like, crazy.
But I think, yeah, I think that's kind of the long and short of it. It's like they're not afraid to like really do those things in the daylight anymore, right? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, it's wild.
People have accepted it. Don't have to hide it anymore.
Man. Well, we just went on a whole roller coaster, so I'm going to let you guys tell us what the hell you think about this down in the comments below. But before we get going, Ceelows, tell them where they can find you.
You can find me at youtube.com and Twitch at Ceelows. Same, both websites.
Alrighty, you can find me at youtube.com/MisterBehavior. That's all spelled out on YouTube. But on Twitch and mine, it's MrBehavior. So MisterBehavior on Twitch and mine, and MisterBehavior on YouTube. And we're going to see you guys on the next episode of the Anti-Oki Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.
For someone like me to be the world's strongest, because I'm on this, just being honest. I astonish my sonic boom flash kicks are right here waiting for you. Wanna get your ass kicked for your plastic? Your kung fu is weak and mine is chic and spastic. Fantastic, you're not a warrior, you're just a beginner. Get up, wimp, and bask in the glory of a winner. My strength is much greater than yours. I'm a street fighting legend, the creator of wars. No use debating the score, I've waited patiently for someone to pound through the ground. I'll smash your face in the floor. Get lost, dog, I'm the boss, you can't compare with my powers. I play this game for the fame, they claim the hundreds of hours.
Listen, it's a tournament edition. Challenging me, it's just like pissing in the wind. Doing KO since I was one day old. Keep on wishing, man, cause no, you'll never win. Yo, listen, it's a tournament edition. Challenging me, it's just like pissing in the wind. Doing KO since I was one day old. Keep on wishing, man, cause no, you'll never win. No need to worry, a state of euphoria. I won the tourney twice, now I am the world warrior. Using my kung fu to destroy you. Flurry of kicks which only your performer hard to. Ken's a competitor, write you out like an editor. Stay ahead of the pack, flame attack like a predator. I ain't stretching the truth, my doll Sims the tightest. I'll leave you burnt to a crisp with elephantitis. Need to charge up to bite, scrap attack with Blanca. Yo, I'm warming up my engines when you lose to Honda. There's no doubt, my win count will haunt ya. Wanna try and win again, we'll let their dish you for one time. Every street fight is better the second time around. I've learned how to throw down, I'm KO bound. Do I punch light or medium? No, I punch hard, because I'm pretty sure I just kicked and blew up a car. Yo, you're looking like vomit, I busted suplex atomic. I fill the room with the boom that sounds supersonic. Tiger flame so feisty, uppercut so nicely. Suck out, will brew you up a batch of Mai Tai iced tea. Listen, listen, it's a tournament edition. Challenging me, it's just like pissing in the wind. Doing KO since I was 1 day old. Keep on wishing, man, cause no, you'll never win. Yo, listen, it's a tournament edition. Challenging me, it's just like pissing in the wind. Doing KO since I was 1 day old. Keep on wishing, man,